Games as a service is a good idea reduced to absurdity by greed. Don't take part in this show. Here's why. What does the money machine eat? It eats youth, spontaneity, life, beauty, and above all, it eats creativity. It eats quality and shits quantity. A quote more relevant than ever if you take a look at today's markets. For example, the football industry. It still has plans for a European Super League because 2 billion euros from the Champions League alone don't seem to be enough. Or remember how Volkswagen cheated to pass emission tests. And then there's the gaming sector, which has grown larger than the movie or the music industry. Hell, even if you cut out consoles completely, it still creates more revenue than the other two combined. And where the money is, goes the greed. It's not a coincidence that you can find Activision Blizzard CEO Robert Kotick on place 2 of the most overpaid CEOs list of 2018. He's in good company with the ace Andrew Wilson there. We also know why. The latest buzzword to further fuel the idiotic corporate dream of infinite growth is games as a service. Per definition, this means providing video games or game content on a continuing revenue model, which isn't inherently a bad thing. The problem is not the theory, but the real-world application. At first, the idea seemed appealing. A constant stream of content. A living and breathing, ever-changing game world which would expand over time. New places to see, new adventures to experience. This all seemed exciting and like a win for both sides of the bargain. Players would get longer support for a game, and the developers would get a constant stream of income, which would lower risks on the long run, because they're not as dependent anymore from initial sales as they used to be. But the sad reality shows a different face. Especially large companies use games as a service as an excuse to release bare shells of games, just to slowly develop them further over time, and within a year or 3 there might be a finished game. Or not. If the minimal shell doesn't generate enough revenue, it gets dumped along with the player base and another more promising product goes into production. The best current example is Fallout 76. Bethesda grasped the opportunity to recycle all of the old Fallout 3 and 4 assets just to nail together a broken mess of a game, literally creating a lifeless wasteland you're asked to buy for at least $60. It still sold 1.4 million copies until the end of 2018, which is less than Fallout 4, but still a lot more than they deserve for such a blatant and lazy rip-off attempt. This and many other cases of excessive greed are not a surprise, or you couldn't have seen them coming. It's all basic economics you get taught early at university. Get maximum profit out of minimal effort. One tool to achieve this goal is the minimum viable product, or MVP. Originally intended for startups, it means to create a product reduced to its core functionality. It's the first iteration of a product and serves the purpose to get real customer feedback from the early adopters in terms to optimize the following releases. Sadly, this idea has been perverted by the AAA industry and became the bane of most mass market products and services nowadays. What we get now is not the MVP, but something below if seen from a quality perspective. We don't get core functionality, we get broken, unoptimized shells instead, all in the name of shareholder value and risk management. Reducing risks is a big thing nowadays. Nah, not for you stupid, for the company. Live service, in its current form, is a nice chance to pass on the risk to the customers, and I've never seen one big business ever pass on a chance like this. As you don't need to establish gaming as a medium anymore, creativity and morals are thrown out of the window by AAA publishers. And now it's more about numbers than ever. That's why Battlefield 5 was seen as a failure by Electronic Arts, even if it sold more than 7 million copies and created $260 million of profit within the release quarter. Why it was seen as a failure? Because of failing to achieve the set goal of over 8 million copies sold and, of course, investor interests. If you can't proclaim constant, or in this case not fast enough growth, your investors will leave and take their money somewhere else. It seems like most participants, publishers, investors and developers alike, got sucked this deep into the swamp of greed they completely lost focus of what matters most, the product itself, the game. Selling broken shit only gets you so far, no matter the industry sector. It's not sustainable. And here we are at the cause of this video. BioWare's Anthem. It's a perfect example of how a business model very likely ruined what could have been a great game. Evidence like, for example, story segments appearing in the wrong order, or items shown in devlogs never appearing in the game, points towards a reboot of the project in the not so distant past. Most likely 2 years at the most. The equation goes like this. Develop game, rip it apart to sell it piece by piece, still charge full price for the stripped down shell, integrate microtransactions, sell cosmetic items, use in-game currency to impair price comparison, slowly drip back in the missing content which should have been included in the first place. And I can just assume, but I'm quite sure this wasn't BioWare's decision. Every aspect of Anthem feels like it should have been another game. A very good game possibly, but not a live service looter shooter. More evidence supporting this claim is a recent interview with Amy Hennig. She's been in the video game industry since the 80s and a legend when it comes to storytelling and direction. Among other things, she directed the Legacy of Kain games in the late 90s and was head writer and creative director for the Uncharted series. In the interview, she states that the development of a story-driven Star Wars game she wrote and directed for EA had been progressed a lot further than most people know. But, quote, "It just didn't make sense in EA's business plan ultimately, so it got cancelled. As almost every game which isn't designed to possibly hold people's attention for at least forever." The icing on the cake is what is always brought up as defense for these practices. Video game development got more expensive and we didn't raise prices. A game is still $60. We didn't even compensate for inflation. Well, you know what also didn't increase? The median household income. US economic growth already decoupled itself from the median household income in the late 1980s. Doesn't look a lot different in Europe. So don't get fooled by the "we didn't raise prices, be grateful" bullshit. Also, they did raise prices. Lots of AAA games nowadays come with a season pass, DLC, microtransactions, pre-order bonuses and several special editions, where 4 out of 5 aren't special in any way. All aimed at luring the customer into the feeling of potentially missing out on something. But now I digress. Let me conclude. Games as a service is an intentionally good thing in my opinion. Sadly, the concept has been converted into an excuse to sell the bare minimum of a product at a full price. It kills creativity, it kills fun, and it interferes deeply into gameplay mechanics just to keep you playing and playing, even if it doesn't make sense anymore. If you're satisfied with games like Anthem, then that's okay. Games are very subjective beasts. But for me, that's not nearly enough, and it hurts to see AAA gaming, not gaming as a whole, decline in such a way. But that's a topic for another day. If you enjoyed the video, then feel free to like, comment and subscribe. Thumbs down if you think Anthem is the second coming of Christ and my opinion sucks. Thanks for stopping by and see you on the next Magnets and Miracles.